Hey guys, it's Coach J, better known as the Six Figure Vet, tapping in with you on the first ever episode of the Six Figure Vet podcast. So, just jumping right into it, tell you little bit about me, tell you a little bit about Victoria's Vets and how I actually became the Six Figure Vet. Okay, so um here's my story. I joined the military at 18, like most people do, or most people from where I grew up, right? So I had an uncle that was in the military. He was doing pretty well for himself. I wanted to go to school initially, but I didn't have the money to actually go to school. I didn't have the money, nor did I have the financial support to be confident in the success of being a college student. So I was like, okay, so what's the next best thing? What can I do besides go to school? And I went and I talked to a recruiter. I talked to the recruiter at the Air Force first, and they was like, oh, we're going to deploy you. We're going to send you off. And I was like, okay, maybe this is not for me, right? Maybe I should not be thinking about joining the military because I don't want to deploy. I don't want to get sent overseas. Like, that's not what I'm trying to do. And as I was on my way back to my car, a Navy recruiter came up to me and was like, hey, shipmate. So I was like, what is a shipmate? And he was like, that's what we call each other in the Navy. So moving forward, after having a brief conversation with him, he was just like, you should come in and talk to me and take a pre-ASVAB test. So I was like, okay, let's go in and just take a pre-test. It was me and one of my friends. So we both went in, we both took a pre-test. I ended up blowing the pre-test like out of the water. So he was like, I need to get you back down here to take a real test. When can you come back? When can you come back? So I was like, well, I can come back in like another 2 weeks to take this test, because at this point I'm probably like an hour and a half away from where I stay. I'm from Sylacauga, Alabama. And I was in Auburn, Alabama at the time talking to a recruiter. So I went back home. I studied up a little bit. I went back down to take the test, and I scored really, really well on the actual ASVAB. So after scoring really well, he told me that I could probably pick my job in like the next couple days. I went back to pick my job and to get sworn in. Like, my process was really, really fast. Most people process in joining the military is not that fast. You go through what's called delayed entry program, or DEP, and that could last like 3, 4, 5, 6 months. But I was telling him, like, I got to get out of here. Like, there's nothing left for me here. I feel like I'm running out of options. Like, I need to go. So from start to finish, my process was probably like a month and a half tops, which, like I said, is very unusual. And they flew me out to my first command, which was in Washington State, in Bremerton, Washington, on the John C. Stennis. Shout out to my squad. There, I was a logistics specialist, and I just basically did a lot of supply chain management and administrative work, and I deployed. I still end up getting deployed. But it was a really good experience, right? So it wasn't like your regular Afghanistan's or Baghdad deployments. It was places like Hawaii and Italy and Singapore and Dubai, right? Those were the type of places I was going to. So I really wasn't sweating the fact that I was having to deploy, because I was like 18 and 19 years old, like going to Dubai and going to Singapore and, being in Hawaii for my birthday. So I really wasn't upset about having to deploy. However, fast forward, I end up leaving the Stennis and coming to Maryland. I was really upset about where they stationed me in Maryland. So I was just like, yo, after this tour, I'm getting out. Like, I had already made up in my head that I was getting out. But then coming to Maryland and seeing so many people that actually looked like me, and seeing so many people that were successful that looked like me, I was just like, yo, I can definitely get out here. Like, I can definitely be successful. I think coming to Maryland like really set the tone for a life after the military, and making me believe like you don't have to be in the military to be successful. That's what Maryland did for me. So Fast forward again to 2020, I ended up becoming pregnant with my son. And I knew at that point that I didn't want to leave him, but I was kind of teeter-tottering back and forth because, having a kid is expensive. I've always heard that having a kid is expensive. You got to worry about childcare. You got to worry about this. You got to worry about that. So I was really back and forth, and I had actually submitted paperwork to re-enlist for another 2 years. And my command did not submit my paperwork on time. And so they came back and it was like, yo, LS2, we did not submit your paperwork. You're going to have to resubmit. So I was thinking like, maybe that's a sign from God that I should not re-enlist. And so I was just like, well, I'm not going to re-enlist. I'm just not going to do it. And so I had been going back and forth, and I had been telling myself I wasn't going to re-enlist. I wasn't going to re-enlist. I wasn't going to re-enlist. Now, meantime, at this time, I have like almost no money. I have like maybe $3,000 or $4,000 saved to my name. I didn't have a job lined up. I didn't know if I was going to get disability. Me and my child's father, we weren't together. So that was a support that I did not have. I was in the state by myself. So, but I just knew that it was all going to come together. I do not recommend doing this, by the way. However, I knew everything was going to come together. So I just really just trusted God and myself to like kind of just conjugate up this plan. So my inner service date was March 23rd. I ended up getting out of the military on March 23rd, and I started working my first job April 14th. I worked for this Fortune 500 company that supports the military in Washington, D.C. It was a work from home job. I had never worked a work from home job, and I also had never made that type of money before. So both of those were like really, really kind of shell-shocking experiences. And I dealt with something that I didn't know about, which is imposter syndrome. Dealing with imposter syndrome, getting out the military, nobody talks to you about how crazy that can be. Nobody talks to you or tells you like how intense imposter syndrome is, because you're getting out the military, and from the military, you've been a pro. Like you have, at the time, I had 8.5 years of experience. I had got all these awards and all these accolades from doing a good job in the military. And now I got to go to somebody else's playing field, which is corporate America, and prove myself there. And it's like, how do I do that? Is that even possible? So it was just really, really intimidating. And I ended up quitting that job shortly after, for no apparent reason. Honestly, I was just like, oh, I'm going to move, or I'm going to do this, or I'm going to do that. And then I quit the job, and I ended up getting another job that freed up a lot of time for me. So with the other job, it wasn't as demanding. It wasn't a lot of deliverables. And it allowed me to really take time to focus on what I felt like was important and what I thought, could make me better in different avenues that I wanted to pursue as far as entrepreneurship. So I ended up buying my first home in September. I quit my job in September. I bought my first home in September as well. And then a couple months later, after working this job and having all this free time and time to research and really figure out what I wanted to do, I ended up buying my first investment property. A month after that, I ended up investing in my first Airbnb. I ended up getting certified to do notary work. And I also ended up founding Victorious Vets. So a lot of progressive things happened, but I had no real clear direction. And I think at one point in time, I was just throwing things against the wall, hoping that it stuck. Because I just wanted to be successful. I knew I wanted more for myself. I wanted more for the life of me and my son. I just didn't really have anybody to guide me into doing those things, right? And I literally just started doing stuff. I stopped being afraid. I got into therapy. I started getting into life coaching and talking about my problems, talking about my issues with people that could help me. And I overcame imposter syndrome, right? I overcame imposter syndrome and I just started shooting for the stars. That's basically what I started doing. What I do now is life coaching. So what made me interested in life coaching is the benefits. So there's two parts. So I just received my bachelor's degree in psychology, and I'm going to school to get my master's in clinical mental health counseling. So I had a therapist, and therapy works on the stuff in the front, like from the past. So all the stuff in the past, that's what therapy works on. And life coaching works on everything moving forward. So you might touch on a little stuff from your past, but in all actuality, you're really just focusing on the things that barriers you can break through now, limiting beliefs that you have now that's preventing you from moving forward and preventing you from being progressive. That's what life coach does. And when I got a life coach, I had been telling myself like, oh, I want to get a life coach. I want to get a life coach. So when I actually decided to get one, and I went ahead and I applied for a program to get a life coach, it changed my life. I was able to push through a lot of barriers. I was able to believe in myself and motivate myself and really manifest the life that I wanted. And I thought that was really dope. So I was like, well, I want to be a life coach. So originally my first idea was to become a life coach for Black women that had just started making their first six figures, because I felt like that was a very new space. It's just a very new space. I see a lot of Black women nowadays acquiring all this wealth and they're making all this money, and it's a new space for Black women. And sometimes imposter syndrome can really come up when you're operating within a new space. Anytime you're operating within a new space, imposter syndrome, like, hey girl, I'm here, what's up, right? So I really wanted to help Black women operate through that space. But being a Black woman that's still operating and navigating through that space, I can't consider myself a subject matter expert, because I'm still trying to figure out how to deal with those things, right? I'm still trying to figure out how to fight imposter syndrome as a Black woman making over six figures. I'm still trying to figure out how to deal with imposter syndrome being in rooms with people that don't look like me, but I have the same qualifications as them. I still am trying to navigate that space. So I had to really ask myself, what problems could you solve as a life coach? And I prayed about it and I meditated on it. And the problem that I feel like I solve is helping veterans transition. That's what I'm good at. You know, I'm the person that everybody calls when they're about to transition out. I'm the person that they get advice from, or what did you do? How did you do this? How did you go about doing your disability? You know, how did you find a job? Do you feel like this? Is your chest tight? Was your chest tight when you was going through this, Jay? Like, yeah, I dealt with all of that. So that's when I decided to become certified in transitioning and success coaching. So that's kind of how I got into life coaching and doing this. And y'all, when I say it all happened like within 10 minutes. So I had been working on my life coaching business, my She Becoming business, and I had been working on it and 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 working on it some more. And there were just certain things I couldn't come up with. Like I couldn't come up with my mission statement. I didn't know what problem I solved. I didn't know how to connect with my target audience. And I was working with a branding strategist, and she was asking me these questions that I didn't have the answer to. And so like on the day of our last call, like the day before our last call, she contacted me and she was just like, yo, what's going on? And I was like, I don't want my business to be about that anymore. I have a new passion. And she's like, what? And I told her about it. And I had my mission statement. I had all these ideas, including this podcast. I had all these ideas and all these great things that I wanted to accomplish and do for veterans. And she was like, that's passion. That's purpose. And you're getting all these ideas and all these thoughts surrounding it because you're walking in your purpose. And that's all sis needed to hear. Okay. I was done after that. So yeah, I started working on this stuff and, creating a program for veterans to help them transition out, and free ebooks and all of this stuff. And that's where I am today. Life, something else I want to talk about is life as a civilian. So life as a civilian, it has its perks, but it also has its downturns. So some of the perks of being a civilian, I feel like, would be not having to check in, not have to clock in with anybody, right? I think in the military, you get so used to like reporting your time. Like right now, I still say when I go on leave, and I'm not even working for anybody anymore. Like, girl, you're just going on vacation. You're just visiting home. But I still say stuff like that because I'm kind of like programmed to think like, oh, I have to check in and let somebody know where I'm going. So that's a plus, not having to do that. Another plus of being outside is just the freedom over your own life and your own time, and not having to worry about leaving. I have a almost 2-year-old son now. He doesn't know what it's like for me to be away from him unless he's like in daycare or something. He doesn't know what that's like. But I know a lot of my friends that children had like lived that life, and I didn't want that to be the life for my son. So family life is really, really big. Like balance of family life is really, really big, especially in civilian world. Also, another plus of being on the civilian side, even working with the government, is everything is not so fast paced. It's not so, oh, you got to hurry up and do this. Oh, you got to hurry up and do that. Oh, this needs to be done. Oh, this. And then you're constantly on an uphill battle, like moving constantly. Most of the jobs, I've had 2 jobs since I got the military, they were not like that. It's like, okay, this is what you do. These are the things that we need from you on a weekly basis. Do them, and we don't really care about what else you do. I know everybody's journey is not like that, but that was a very big plus for me because I had all of these entrepreneurial ideas in my head that I needed time to get out of my brain. And I also wanted to finish school, right? I also needed to get my degree. So being able to do those things, play with different companies and start different businesses and finish my degree, my bachelor's degree within a year, and, apply for my master's and move and all this stuff, I wouldn't have been able to do any of that stuff while I was in the military as fast as I did them, right? As fast as I did them. So those are the pros of being a civilian. The cons of being a civilian, the camaraderie. So I know that people get on your nerves in the military. I get that. I get it. I understand it. However, I built some really long-lasting relationships with people that I serve this great country with. My best friend, I met her in the military. I have a goddaughter. A couple of my really closest friends, brothers, people that I consider my brothers and sisters, I met them, people that have showed up for me and my son, and their families have showed up for me and my son, I've met in the military. And every command that I went to, I established these amazing relationships. So in the civilian world, it's not really like that though. Like in the civilian world, you might have like a work friend, but nobody that you would really just develop a super duper long, life lasting relationship with. It's like, okay, girl, we friends from 9 to 5, and at 5 on 1, I'll talk to you tomorrow. That's kind of how it is in the civilian world, which I respect and I understand. But when you're in a state by yourself, like I am with my son, all of my family and friends are in Maryland, or now migrating to Texas, and I'm here in Maryland, and all my family and friends are in Alabama, and I'm here in Maryland. So it's kind of hard, and you get lonely. Sometimes you get lonely. Another great thing about being in the military is it does create some type of stability. When you're a civilian, you create your own stability, right? You create your own stability. The military does that for you. The military gives you purpose. The military gives you a guideline, like, okay, if you do this, you do that, you do this, and you do that, and then you don't get in trouble, this is what we're going to give you. We're going to give you E7, we're going to give you E8, you're going to give you E9. If you put in this package and then you do a couple other things, we could possibly turn you into an officer. Those things are accolades. Those things make you feel accomplished. Those things make you feel like you have purpose. When you're a civilian, you have to create all that stuff for yourself. You have to create your own purpose. You have to create your own path. You have to figure out what you want your accolades to look like. So, and for some people, that's really hard. It was really hard for me to do when I first joined, or when I first exited the military. It was really hard for me to define what purpose and passion was for me. It was really hard for me to figure out what a successful life meant being outside of the military, or how to be impactful in the world being outside the military, because just being a part of the military really makes you feel like you're changing the world, or at least you're contributing to it in some type of form or fashion. But when you get out, all of that is stripped away. You don't have that anymore. So figuring out your place in this world when you get out is all up to you. And sometimes that can be super duper intimidating. A piece of advice that I could give a veteran or a transitioning service member, from my own little tank of wisdom, I guess, it would be to be honest with yourself about how you feel. I think that sometimes when we are making big decisions in life, we kind of lie to ourselves in order to remain in a safe space. I think that's very dangerous to do when you're transitioning out, because reality hits you. It's going to hit you, and it's going to hit you hard. So just be as transparent with yourself as you can, so you can work through those limiting beliefs to overcome them, so you can really live the life that you deserve. And that is all for today's episode, guys. Also, one extra thing, we are coming out, Victorious Vets is coming out with a digital course. Woohoo, yeah. Yes, so we are coming out with the Vet to Success digital course. It's going to be amazing, right? It's going to be amazing. It's going to be a 6-week digital course, 50% off, 50% off for all people that sign up during the pre-launch. So your price goes from $497 to $248. What's going to be included in this course is we're going to be talking about disability ratings. We're going to be talking about limiting beliefs. We're going to be doing resumes, free resume reviews, and a whole bunch of other stuff. You do not want to miss the pre-launch of Victorious Vet's Vet to Success digital course. It's going to be off the chain. We can't wait to have you in. I look forward to hearing from you. And remember, dreams to goals, goals to plans, plans to execution.